It is Wednesday the 20th of February 2019. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal and I'm protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, and a variety of other Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and indeed hypocrisies, plural. I voluntarily suspended my protest for a full 6 months, all of August, September, October, November, December, and January, because the church agreed to enter into dialogue with me. And I said that I would suspend my protest for a minimum of 2 months, and I'd allow that to continue indefinitely as long as I believed that some real progress was being made in the dialogue between me and the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Unfortunately, since December 20th of 2018, so full 2 months, there's been no progress that I can see, and I've actually seen some regressive moves on the part of the representatives of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So not only not moving forward, but in some ways moving backwards. So I decided to resume my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I actually told the church some weeks ago that I intended to protest at least twice in February. There was a little complication in that after I suspended my protest voluntarily at the end of July, in September of 2018, September 6th specifically, Sue Montgomery, the mayoress of Côte-des-Neiges and Notre-Dame-de-Grâce borough, who's a member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal and who has involved herself in efforts to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal for over a decade now. She was able to get me arrested on breach of conditions charges. She already had me placed under conditions as a result of accusing me of criminal harassment, again in an effort to shut down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. That was not her only motivation, but it's certainly one of them. She placed the Unitarian Church of Montreal in the conditions from the very beginning. My lawyer was able to get them removed in February 19th of last year, so just over a year ago. Those conditions prohibiting being at the Unitarian Church of Montreal were removed. But Sue brought additional charges against me, in part to get the Unitarian Church of Montreal put back into conditions. Well, the interesting thing is that my lawyer told me that even though the Unitarian Church of Montreal is named in the conditions, that I actually can protest as long as I'm outside the church on the public walkway, which I've always been anyway. I was kicked out of the Unitarian Church of Montreal on November 22nd of 1999, and so if I was to step onto the church property, it would be considered trespassing. So I've never trespassed except for the occasion. Every now and then, one of my picket signs blows onto the church property, and then I just briefly step on it to pick up the picket sign and retrieve it. But that's the only time I've ever been on church property, just briefly to retrieve picket signs that have been blown onto the church property or thrown onto the church property, for that matter, by disgruntled Unitarians. So that, oh yeah, one more time, yeah, there were 1 or 2 thefts of my picket signs. So as a result of the thefts of my picket signs, in terms of trying to get them retrieved, I did go up to the door of the Unitarian Church of Montreal in the past and knock on the door and ask to have my picket signs back, but that's it. Anyhow, getting back to the current situation, there was some confusion regarding whether or not I could be here, but I've managed to clear up that confusion. I spoke with my lawyer several times, most recently this morning, and he told me, reminded me that the Crown prosecutor on the case, the previous Crown prosecutor, had told him, that it was okay for me to protest in front of the church. Specifically, he said that basically that I was outside of a 300-meter radius around Sue Montgomery, that the church was not within that radius, so I was okay. And I double checked with the SPVM PDQ 11, that's Poste de Quartier 11, Poste de Quartier 11. I called them before coming here today to inquire about that because I really wanted to be quite sure that it was okay to protest. And I was told by the police officer that yes, it's okay, I can protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal as long as Sue Montgomery is not here. Well, I have no reason to believe that she's here or will be here. If she's doing her job as the mayoress of Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, I have a feeling she'll be somewhere else other than the Unitarian Church of Montreal on a Wednesday afternoon around lunchtime. So here I am, and the reason I'm here now, other than the fact that there's no reasonable expectation for Sue Montgomery to be here, is because there is a lunch event happening, so there should be a few members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal showing up for this lunchtime event, so I want them to be able to see my protest, see my picket sign, see that the protest has resumed, and basically will continue as far as I'm concerned until the Unitarian Church of Montreal and the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community deal responsibly with the issues I'm protesting against, which amongst other things, as you can see from this picket sign, include the Unitarian Universalist Association hiring Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors defamation lawyer Maître Marc-André Coulombe to falsely accuse me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in legal bullying that sought to intimidate me into taking down blog posts about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, if I can borrow two choice phrases from the cease and desist demand letters that Maître Marc-André Coulombe had me served with in 2012. So they essentially tried to intimidate me into removing blog posts that told the readily verifiable truth about pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers under threat of being prosecuted for violating Canada's blasphemy law, which I didn't know existed until I was accused of violating it. So I think we're going to circulate a bit here. I just wanted to have a little intro video, but I'm basically going to retrieve the camera, put it around my neck, and we'll circulate here. And we'll just do a little protest for an hour or two. Actually, before I do that, I would like to make another point here. Part of the problem here is that Quebec Crown prosecutors act on complaints, basically criminal accusations brought to them by the SPVM that they really should not act upon. I have, in the past, been falsely accused of violating Section 176.3 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of church services. Montreal Unitarians sought an injunction against me to try and suppress my protest, basically within the first few years that it began, back in 1998. They were told that they can't get an injunction to shut down my protest because there's this thing called the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that the only circumstance under which they could get my protest in front of the church shut down is if I was basically convicted of a crime, in which case they could have an injunction or conditions placed on me that prohibited me from being near the church. So what they did is they went looking through the Canadian Criminal Code. I think they had a Queen's Counsel lawyer by the name of Kenneth Howard QC helping them on that, and they found this law that had been rarely enforced. That basically it's a reasonable law as far as I'm concerned. It prohibits disrupting a church service, so you can't mess up a church service. That's not an unreasonable law per se, but they misused it by trying to use it against me for my protest outside the church, which basically can't be seen or heard inside the church, has no possibility of disrupting the actual church service, but nonetheless, the prosecutor decided to act on that ridiculous complaint. I was acquitted about 3 years later after being arrested because the Crown prosecutor in that case couldn't prove a single one of the 4 or 5 points of law that he had to prove beyond reasonable doubt to obtain a conviction, not one of them. So basically I was completely 100% innocent of that charge, and yet Quebec Crown prosecutors acted on it. And there's been similar things happening. As far as I'm concerned, even the criminal harassment charge that Sue Montgomery brought against me has virtually no reasonable grounds. Really, the activities that she's trying to pretend are criminal harassment are nothing more than peaceful public protest, asking questions at city council meetings and election debates, and on one occasion during a chance encounter I had with her, relatively politely reminding her that she falsely accused me of libel and that she needed to make amends for that false libel accusation. That's it, that's all. Really nothing there that constitutes criminal harassment. It's even open to debate if it constitutes ordinary run-of-the-mill harassment, but criminal harassment is essentially harassment that causes a person to fear for their personal safety. There's really nothing there. I engaged in peaceful public protest. That was for the public. You know, it wasn't there to harass Sue, it was to inform the public about serious problems with Sue. I did not believe that someone with Sue Montgomery's low ethical standards and her proclivity to misuse SPVM police power to shut down a peaceful public protest against clergy abuse should really be the mayor of Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. So I tried to inform NDG voters about that. So that's it. Free, peaceful public protests, protesting against Sue's complicity in Unitarian Universalist cover-up efforts and misuse of SPVM power in collaboration with the church to shut down my protest. One moderately tough question at a political debate with all three mayoralty candidates. The question was posed to all three mayoralty candidates, but Sue tried to pretend it was harassment of her. And then, as I said, one chance encounter while I was waiting for the bus across from Vendôme Metro Station. Sue Montgomery unexpectedly came down Marlowe Street and I saw her, so as she was going by, I just said, "Hey Sue, don't forget you're accusing me of libel and you know, you should make amends for that." You know, and I think I reminded her that I would be asking another question at a Montreal City Council meeting coming up. That's it. That's not exactly ordinary harassment, let alone criminal harassment. Certainly no threat to her. So that's it. We're going to circulate, but I just want to make it clear that unfortunately it's not just the SPVM that is responsible for repressing my rights. It is Quebec Crown prosecutors as well, because they act on criminal complaints that they really should not act upon. Okay, so we're gonna just put the camera around my neck. I'm noticing that my freestanding picket sign at the other end there is no longer there. Maybe it just fell down, or maybe somebody took it. We'll know soon enough. If somebody did take it, it might be in the video. So we shall see. I'll just leave the tripod lying here, and we will circulate with a couple of picket signs. Oh, there it is. So it just fell down. As I said in the video, there have been some occasions where my picket signs have been stolen by Montreal Unitarians, so I thought it was possible that while I was doing my little spiel there, that a Montreal Unitarian might have grabbed my picket sign and walked into the church with it, but thankfully that's not the case. So we'll just circulate here on the sidewalk as we're supposed to do. Good day, sir. Bonjour.
Ça veut dire en français?
L'Église unitarienne universaliste, pas juste ici, mais le bureau chef à Boston, ils m'ont accusé de violer la loi anti-blasphème canadienne parce que j'ai parlé des pédophiles et violeurs. C'est ça. Bonne journée. So, back in the groove here in terms of peaceful public protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. And we shall see how things go. But as I said, I've been reassured by my lawyer that the Crown prosecutor on the case, the original one, told him very clearly that he had measured the distance between Sue Montgomery's residence and the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and that it was not within the 300-meter radius around Sue Montgomery that she managed to place around herself as a result of her most recent accusations against me in September of 2018. I also double-checked with Poste de Quartier 11, PDQ 11, and they're the police station that would be most likely to respond to a call, a complaint, and they told me no, as long as Sue Montgomery is not at the church, you can protest. So I'm taking the word of the SPVM, I'm taking the word of my lawyer, and we'll see how things go. But I actually, because the situation was not clear early in the month, and it's not 100% clear, you know, I don't have reassurances in writing that it's okay for me to protest here, but basically I've had plenty of verbal assurance, both from my own lawyer and from the SPVM, you know, and according to my lawyer, from the original Crown prosecutor on the case, that as long as Sue Montgomery's not at the church, I'm okay to protest. And I have no reason to believe that Sue Montgomery will be at the Unitarian Church of Montreal on a Wednesday afternoon around noon. I even have very little reason to believe that Sue Montgomery will be at the Unitarian Church of Montreal during Sunday services, for the simple reason that she has told people that she essentially stopped going to the Unitarian Church of Montreal years ago. She did come last year on March 18th as I was protesting. March 18th last year was, you know, about a month after my lawyer had managed to get the Unitarian Church of Montreal completely removed from the conditions, no mention of it whatsoever. And he'd also been able to make it clear that I could go to city council meetings and ask questions, so I could go to public city council meetings. So essentially, I was totally in the